Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our virtual nature talk about butterflies. I'm so glad you could join us today. Before we get started with Emily Hawthorn, I wanted to talk to you about Phil Hardberger Park Conservancy. The Conservancy is a member-based nonprofit that bridges the gap between San Antonio and nature by bringing free nature programs to the public. They also protect the natural habitat of the park through advocacy, fundraising, and promotion. If you enjoy the programs that we offer in the park, please consider supporting the Conservancy through a donation or by becoming a member. Visit philhardbergerpark.org to learn more. This talk will be recorded and shared on our website. Please turn off your video and mute your microphone. This helps reduce background noise. Please enter any questions in the chat, and Emily will answer all questions at the end. Today we have Emily Hawthorn here to talk to us about common San Antonio butterflies. So, the floor is yours.
Hey, I'm Nikki Apostolo, and I'm the project manager here at the Butterfly Learning Center. Thank you so much for visiting us virtually. And today we have a very special guest. We have Emily Hawthorn, and she oversees our hatch house. And today she's going to tell us about 5 important butterflies that we should know about that are here in San Antonio.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us virtually. I want to talk to you about 5 San Antonio butterflies and actually a few extras. So here's our agenda. We're going to talk about the butterfly life cycle, the difference between host and nectar plants. I'm going to introduce you to 5 butterflies that you should know. And we're going to briefly talk about monarchs. And then a copycat, and finally we'll have a review. So let's get started with the butterfly life cycle. The butterflies have what they call a complete transformation. It starts with an egg, which when it hatches turns into a caterpillar. Now the caterpillars, when they hatch, are very, very small. They're about the size of a comma on a newspaper page. They go through 5 stages. They're called instars. The first stage is the first instar, and that's that tiny little caterpillar I was telling you about. You can think about caterpillars as kind of an empty plastic bag. They are eating machines. They eat and eat and eat until they can't fit anymore inside their skin, and at that point they shed their skin. And they do that 5 times. So each time that they shed their skin, they come out as a little bit larger caterpillar. And the last time that they shed their skin, they turn into a pupa or a chrysalis. And finally, after a week or 2 in the chrysalis stage, while the cells inside this are rearranging themselves, they turn into a butterfly, and they pop out of the chrysalis and hang upside down while they pump their wings up. They come out folded up rather like an umbrella. So let me give you an example here. These are actually Gulf fritillary caterpillars. This one is about, I would say, about a 4th instar, and that one is probably a 3rd instar. And they're on passion vine. That is their host plant. And this is a Gulf fritillary chrysalis. Okay. So let me carefully put this back so I don't mash any caterpillars. And although those caterpillars look kind of scary because they're red and they have black spines, they're actually very docile. But not all caterpillars are docile. Now, butterfly caterpillars, generally speaking, are not poisonous to us, but they taste bad. Some of them taste bad, like monarchs, for example. Monarchs feed on milkweed, and they ingest the toxins in the milkweed, and it makes them taste bad and makes the predators sick. So they, generally speaking, avoid predation by birds, for example. Now let's talk a little bit about host versus nectar plants. A host plant is where the butterfly will lay its eggs. And most butterflies will only lay their eggs on one or two plants. For example, the monarch will lay on milkweed, and the Gulf fritillary will lay on passion vine. So you can think of a host plant as caterpillar food. Now nectar plants, on the other hand, are used by all different kinds of butterflies and hummingbirds too, and other pollinators. For example, some of the most popular ones are Greg's mistflower, flame acanthus, purple coneflower, and autumn sage. And some plants are both nectar and host plants. For example, the milkweed is usually very popular with all of the pollinators. So now let's go on to the butterflies. First one I'm going to tell you about is the American snout. And this picture was from fellow master naturalist Patsy Kuntz, who volunteers at the Hardberger Park Wildscape Demonstration Garden. Most of these pictures came from either the Butterfly Learning Center or from the Wildscape Demo Garden. So if you would like to see what a wildscape looks like, you should go visit that garden. It's over by the Urban Ecology Center. But this is called a snout because you can see it has this long, almost a proboscis, but it's not. It's called a palp. It's called palps. And their host plant is hackberries. Now I have hackberry in my yard, and although I look every year, I have yet to find a caterpillar. I'm still hopeful though. So our next butterfly is the black swallowtail. And these pictures up here were taken right here in the Butterfly Learning Center. Here is the butterfly egg, and this is about a second instar caterpillar. And this is a larger caterpillar, probably third or fourth instar. And this one on the end, I teased him a little bit, and he showed me his horns. These orange things right here are actually, it's called an osmeterium. And if he's disturbed, he pushes them out and exudes a kind of a funky smell too, to try to scare off any predators. And I bet it works with things like wasps. Down here at the bottom are the adults. This one is a female. You see the blue around the bottom of the wings, and this one is a male. No blue on this one. Okay, our next butterfly is the common buckeye. And I really like these little guys. They're not very big, but they're very colorful. And you can see these bold eye spots here. Their host plant is plantains. Not the kind of plantain that's a banana relative, a much smaller plant. And again, this photo is by Patsy Kuntz. I think I forgot to tell you what the host plants are for the black swallowtail. So let me talk to you about that. The host plants are dill, fennel, parsley, rue, and wild members of the carrot family. And I'm sitting in front of a fennel plant, and that's where these pictures came from earlier this year. Okay, let's go on to the next butterfly, which is the pipevine swallowtail. And you can see the adult. This is actually a male, and it's iridescent blue, depending, of course, on the light. But they really are beautiful butterflies, and they're pretty big. They're almost as big as my hand. This over here is a female that has just laid some eggs up here. And the eggs are kind of an orange color, orange amber color. And this is a picture of the caterpillar, and it really is very scary looking. When they're big, they're about the size of my thumb, and with all these little horns and knobs and spines. But again, they're pretty docile. You will see the pipevine swallowtail here at Hardberger Park a lot. You'll see them fluttering around, looking for the host plant, because the pipevine that we have here in Hardberger Park is an understory plant, it grows underneath other plants like grass. And so you'll see the female, and again, it has this row of orange spots here on the underwing. And that's how you can tell it's a pipevine, because you won't see her very often with her wings open. She'll be fluttering really quickly and hopping around on the ground looking for the pipevine. Now, how does she know when she's found it? She can taste it with her feet. She can smell it with her antenna. But she can, when she finds it and her feet light on it, she can taste it. And that's when she knows that she can lay her eggs on that. The pipevine also has toxins in it, so when the caterpillar ingests it, it makes them toxic and taste bad, frankly. So they are not favored by the predators, because once the predator has tasted one, doesn't want to do it again. Okay. Now I'm going to talk to you about sulfurs and other yellow butterflies. This right here is a cloudless sulphur, and it's a pretty big sulphur. It's a pretty big butterfly. But the problem with these butterflies is trying to identify them, because they sit with their wings folded. You can see all of these in profile, right? That's because you don't see them very often with their wings open. So they're very hard to identify. But these photos are all by Patsy Kuntz, and she did a really good job of getting them backlit by the sunlight. And you can see here, this is actually a sleepy orange, and you can see right up in here, the orange shows through because of the light shining behind it. And this is excuse me, the southern dogface. And if you look very closely here, again, this is lit from behind, you can see the shape that looks rather like a dog's head with an eye spot right in the middle. I love those little guys. The host plant for these two is sinas, and the host plant for the southern dogface is prairie clovers and other legumes. Now at this point you're probably asking yourself, what, she's not going to talk about monarchs? Why? Well, there's two good reasons for that. One is that Drake White, who was the originator of the Butterfly Learning Center, is going to be giving a program next month on monarchs and the monarch life cycle. And I strongly encourage you to tune in for that. And then the second thing is, I'm not going to talk about monarchs very much, but I want to tell you about two other milkweed butterflies that we see sometimes here in Hardburger Park. And they're all related. Then they all host on milkweed. So here's a monarch, and this is a male. You can tell because of these two black spots right down here. Those are scent patches, and the male uses those to attract the female. A related butterfly that we see quite often, and in fact I've seen them this week in the Wildscape demo garden, is the queen. And this again is a male. It's got those same two patches. But you can tell the difference for two reasons. One, you can see the veining really strong on the monarch, but it's not so strong here. You can barely see it on the top side. And this is really not a very good color. It's really more like this color. It's kind of a mahogany color rather than an orange like the monarch. The queens are very common here. I saw about 20 of them when I was at the Wildscape demo garden. And finally, there's the soldier. The soldier looks a lot like the queen. The only way you can tell them apart is to see the underside, where you will see this white C, kind of like a watermark on the lower wing. And now let's talk about the larva. This is a 5th instar monarch caterpillar, and they're pretty big. They're almost as big as my little finger. And this is a queen. And you can see the monarch caterpillar has 2 sets of filaments, and the queen has 3. And the striping is a little bit different too. The soldier caterpillar also has 3 sets of filaments, but you can see this one is a smaller caterpillar. You can see it's kind of has a greenish tinge. I'm not showing you the chrysalis or the egg because they're very similar between all 3 of these. It's kind of hard to tell them apart. In fact, I'm not sure anybody can until you get the adult. The last thing I wanted to say is that we don't get soldier butterflies around here until the end of the year, you know, like in late November. They are mostly down on the coast, and when we have a tropical storm, it will sometimes blow them up here. So we have seen them here in the Butterfly Learning Center. Okay. So now I want to talk to you about a copycat. This is the Viceroy butterfly, and it does look a lot like the Monarch, but the way you tell them apart is that the Monarch in a lower wing has kind of a spider web type set of veins, and whereas the Viceroy has a solid line, a curved solid line. And I actually have not seen Viceroys here in San Antonio. I think that's probably because their host plant is willows, which are more common in a wetter environment than we have. But I'm hoping one day I'll get to see one. So let's review. We've talked about the butterfly life cycle and host versus nectar plants. Remember, a host plant is caterpillar food and a nectar plant is butterfly food. We talked about these 5 butterflies: the Gulf fritillary, American snout, black swallowtail, common buckeye, and the pipevine. And then we also talked about sulphurs and other yellow butterflies, the monarch and similar milkweed butterflies, and a copycat, the Viceroy. So do we have any questions?
So we'll leave it open for just a moment, see if there are any questions for us.
I have a quick question. What are some ways that maybe people at home can help butterflies, especially in San Antonio?
The best thing you can do is plant native plants, and especially nectar plants for all year round, host plants for in the spring. And the second thing that you can do is to use as few chemicals as possible. And I'm not just talking about pesticides. I'm talking about things that you might not think would affect a butterfly. For example, bleach, or hand cream, or strong perfume. They don't like it, and in some cases it can even be deleterious to their health. I'll give you an example. That soldier caterpillar, one night I looked over and it was rolling over and over and over again. It looked like it was in real trouble. And I didn't know what to do, so I called Drake and I said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "Well, have you touched it?" "No." "Do you have any strong odors?" And I said, "No." She said, "Do you have any candles?" And a friend had just given me a candle for Christmas. And I hadn't even turned it, lit it. I just opened the lid, and it was very strong vanilla. She said, "Quick, get rid of the candle and rinse him off." And I rinsed him off twice, and he survived. But that was a really scary experience.
We have Alamo area Texas Master Naturalist says, "Really interesting, Emily." And Mary Jo Waldorf from Virchin asks, "Is the passion vine the one with the purple flower?"
Yes, it is, and we have it here. And I don't unfortunately have that, but if you look around behind me, you'll see the Gulf fritillaries flying around. And somebody asked me not too long ago, how can I find a caterpillar? And the answer is you look for their signs. This is a leaf from the passion vine, and you can tell that a caterpillar has been eating on it. That's really very distinctive. The other thing you can look for is for caterpillar droppings, which look a lot like black pepper. When they're very small, it's very powdery. When they're bigger, it gets to look like peppercorns.
Right, so we've got quite a few more questions here.
Okay.
Alamo area Texas Master Naturalist asks, how many weeks does the caterpillar stage typically last for them to go through all the instars?
Well, that's a really good question, and it depends on the weather. If it's hot and there's plenty of food, they could be done with their caterpillar stage in about 2 weeks. If it's cold, it might take 4 weeks. And I guess the next question would be, how long will they be in chrysalis? And that's pretty much the same answer. It could be as short as a week or 10 days, or as long as 2 weeks, or even longer. Some butterflies overwinter in the chrysalis stage.
Okay. Lisa says, excellent presentation, focused and organized. Thank you. Tatiana Muñiz asks, or says, I have a resident Viceroy in my land. It hangs with the willows in the creek. If you'd like to see it, we can make a trip.
I'd love to. Thank you for the invitation. That's wonderful.
Julia Simmons asks, when should we cut down tropical milkweed in San Antonio?
You should do that early October. Cut it back to about at least 6 inches. It will come back, unless of course we have another deep freeze like we had this year. Mine all died.
I have a quick question. Why would you want to cut back a milkweed plant? And do you cut back all of the milkweed plants?
The answer is, okay, I don't want to take too much away from what Drake's going to say, but the monarchs, in the springtime, they need milkweed to lay their eggs. They come up from Mexico through Texas, and they need the milkweed then. When you cut it back in the fall, there's the chance that an infected monarchs have a parasite called OE. I can't pronounce the Latin name. And it gets spread onto the milkweed. So by laying their eggs or by nectaring on the milkweed, they could deposit that. And you don't want some virgin, uninfected, healthy monarch coming in contact with that. And you also don't want to distract them. You want them, instead of stopping and reproducing, you want them to continue on to their winter grounds in Mexico.
All right, great. So Bridget Nicole asks, I'm hoping to start a career in Lepidoptera. Is it possible to volunteer/apply to your facility? And for Phil Hardberger Park, yes, it absolutely is. You can check out the website, and that should have instructions for it.
And not only that, but they could join the Master Naturalists, and that
Absolutely.
would be a really good way to get involved in a lot of different places, not just at the Butterfly Learning Center, but for example at the Wildscape Demo Garden.
Definitely.
And if you wanted to visit the Butterfly Learning Center, we volunteer on Wednesdays, usually between 8 and 11. So if you wanted to pop in to get more information about the Butterfly Learning Center, the Hatch House, or how to sign up as a Master Naturalist, you can visit our website, or you can come visit us to talk to us more about it.
Great. Patricia Kuntz suggests, Emily, you might want to mention the various native passion flowers, some of which have small, green, inconspicuous flowers.
So there are several. The one that we have the most of here is maypop, which is I'm not sure I would recommend planting it in your yard because it's invasive. It tends to send out runners under the ground, and they pop up in all different kinds of places. But it is really good caterpillar food. I have one in my yard called the birdwing passion vine, which is has a much smaller leaf, and you can look it up on wildflower.org, and you can see what it looks like. The blossom is about the size of my thumbnail, and it is a pale green. It's really beautiful.
Okay. Mary Jo Waldorf from Virton asks, is there a list of host/nectar plants on the park page? And on the park page, I do not believe so, although maybe there is on the Master Naturalist homepage, if you guys know.
I know that there is a list that AgriLife has. I'm not sure if you can find it on their website, but I have a set of books that I had intended to recommend, and I will post that on the website here. And I want to shout out to this. This little fold out, I got it either at Rainbow Gardens or at HEB, and it's really very handy for carrying around because it weighs almost nothing. But in here it has, for example, here's the queen, has the Latin name, tells you how big it is, when it's here, and what the host plant is. And it's got about 60 butterflies here.
Catherine Steer asks, is there a season or months in which it is most common to see butterflies here in San Antonio?
I would say most of the year we see butterflies. When it's really cold, we don't see them, but they go into what's called diapause, which is a hibernation phase. They will hide under under tree bark or under house eaves and just slow down their metabolism, and when it gets warm again, then they will come back out and look for nectar.
Great. So Alamo Area Texas Master Naturalist shared a link to our website for more information about the program. Mary Jo Waldorf from Virton says thank you, and that pretty much wraps us up.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for coming out.
All right, everybody.
25 minutes.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this talk. If you are interested in learning more about Hardberger Park and the conservancy that supports it, please visit philhardbergerpark.org. The Conservancy is a member-based nonprofit that relies on donations to support educational activities in the park. If you're able to give $5 or $10 to support programs like today's, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Bye.